So get to know your dreams. How? By setting your intention to remember them and then writing them down. So the first one is that intention dream recall. So fall asleep telling yourself, tonight I remember my dreams. I have excellent dream recall. Really set that strong intention. And remember, everybody dreams. Anyone listening thinking they don't dream, that's simply not true. The only way to stop the human brain from dreaming is a heavy head injury or a stroke. Apart from that, everybody is dreaming every single night because it's linked to our evolutionary survival. So you've got to be dreaming every night.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another mind and heart opening podcast on Just Tap In. Have you ever suddenly felt awake in a dream and started doing some crazy shit? Well, today we brought on one of the leading foremost experts in lucid dreaming and dream yoga. Well, Charlie Morley has been lucid dreaming for over 20 years and was authorized to teach within the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism by Lama Yeshe Rinpoche in 2008. Since then, he has written 4 powerful books, the latest being called Wake Up to Sleep, 5 Powerful Practices to Transform Stress and Trauma for Peaceful Sleep and Mindful Dreams. He's spoken at some of the most prestigious universities in the world, such as Cambridge and Oxford, and regularly gives workshops and leads masterclasses for leveraging the skill of lucid dreaming to expand our mind, integrate traumas and shadows, and even confront our fears face to face. In this special conversation, you'll learn about hacking the lucid dream state, meeting your hidden talents and shadows, overcoming recurrent nightmares, visiting other realms of existence, and so much more. Before we move on, the number one thing you can do to support this show and help us land more incredible teachers like Charlie is to subscribe to this channel and drop a like on this video to help it get shown to more wisdom seekers like you. And without further ado, get ready for this masterclass in an ancient inner technology called lucid dreaming that the Western world is discovering that'll help us transform our consciousness with Charlie Morley. Charlie Morley, welcome to the podcast. How are you, brother?
Hey, man, I'm great. How are you?
Doing good, man. I really wanted to get into this topic of lucid dreaming for such a long time. When I first heard about it, I was pretty young. I didn't know about you at that time, but just learning about that we can actually go into our dreams and integrate all these fears, integrate this trauma. And that's really where your story began. I mean, you started lucid dreaming at 15 years old. I can't even imagine me at 15, what I would be doing. I mean, you said skateboarding and having sex.
Exactly what I was doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would be probably doing basketball and having sex, those two things. So, and it's really fascinating because as time went by, you were really passionate about exploring altered states of consciousness and exploring your own mind. And there was one instance where you had a heavy acid trip where it was almost accidental, and you were for 3 days just having these recurring nightmares for a long time after that.
No, for 3 days I was tripping.
Yeah.
And then the nightmares were like for 3 or 4 months after that. Yeah, that was a really bad thing. I mean, no, not a bad experience, because why do I still refer to it as a bad experience? Without that experience, I would not have got into Buddhism or lucid dreaming so young. I think I would have eventually. I was already lucid dreaming, but just for fun. I was already dabbling in a little bit of Buddhism, but just for fun. So actually that experience, a bit like a kind of in shamanic traditions, you have this thing called dismemberment, which is like a complete dismemberment of the ego, like the kind of dark night of the soul, the real kind of ego death experience, which can really speed the path to, or speed the route to paths of awakening, I think. I definitely wouldn't call it an awakening experience, what I had, or anything like that, but it moved the path. It sped the path. It sped the route to the path of awakening, I think.
Yeah, because you integrated, like you used this experience and knowledge you had about lucid dreaming. And what occurred to you in that moment to heal yourself from these nightmares through your practice of you had already been getting into lucid dreaming?
Yeah. It was about kind of 3 or 4 months into these recurring nightmares. And I was doing my A-levels at college. It was like a really high pressure time. And every night I couldn't sleep. I was like woken up by these terrible night terrors and nightmares. And so I'd like eat coffee out of the, like instant coffee out of the jar to try and stay awake at night. But then it's even worse because you get this thing called REM rebound, which is where your REM periods like stack up the next night. So it was really bad. And I remember one morning on the way to college, just thinking like, oh no, that was it. I was at college and I was hiding in the bathroom at the toilet cubicle because I had, I used to get these panic attacks. And I would have like fear of big spaces. So I wanted to be somewhere really small. And I'm just thinking like, what have I done? Like, this is fucked up, man. Like, I'm 17. I'm hiding in a toilet cubicle. I didn't sleep last night because of the terrible nightmares. I've got to do something about this. And I knew in the lucid dreaming books that I'd read before then, they always had chapters on nightmares and stuff. But because I hadn't have any nightmares, I kind of breezed through those chapters. Not sure if I even read them. But I remember going back to Stephen LaBerge's book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. He's got either a chapter or a few solid sections on nightmares. And he basically lays out what you do. If you can become lucid in the nightmare, know that you're not truly in danger or in threat. This is simply a replay or a symbolic representation of the traumatic threat, whatever it was, then you might be able to integrate it. So not a lot of pointers, but he basically kind of laid out kind of some of the things you could do. So I started to become lucid in those nightmares, and I had become lucid in them before because nightmares often lead to lucidity, because in a nightmare you get this rush of fear. Yeah. You're like, boom, oh my God, and I mean, look what happened. And my eyes got bigger, my senses are more attuned. So fear is a pretty good awareness booster. So if you suddenly move into fear in a dream, you often become lucid. So if people are listening to this, they think I've never had a lucid dream. Oh, but we should probably define our terms. By the way, a lucid dream is a dream in which you know that you're dreaming as the dream is happening, and then allows you to have volitional direction or choreography over the dream content. So if you think I've never had one of those, maybe you've had a nightmare where in the nightmare you've gone, I've got to wake up. If you have, that was a lucid dream too. So I started having those. I'd been these recurring nightmares and I'd kind of become lucid, but it was just so real and it was so terrifying. I was just going, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then maybe the third or fourth time that happened, I became lucid and I was instinctively wanting to wake up. And I just remembered, I was like, no. Every time you wake up, the nightmare comes back again. I didn't know why. Now I know why.
Okay, yeah.
You don't heal it. It's like leaving a therapy session before the therapy session's ended. The therapist has to come back and say, dude, we need to finish this session, right? Nightmares are deeply beneficial, deeply therapeutic, deeply healing. You know, without them, we'd go mad in an instant. But I didn't know any of this back then. I was just like, I fucking hate these things. So I became lucid and I was angry. It was actually anger. You know, anger can be a really good driving force sometimes. The Dalai Lama's, one of his latest books came out just a year or so ago. It was called Be Angry by the Dalai Lama, collection of his teachings on how anger can be channeled. And in this case, it was good channeled anger. I was angry and I turned to face this dwarf, basically this little dwarf with a shaved head would appear. And he was the nightmare. It doesn't sound that scary.
It was the same one every time.
Yeah, same one. Basically, he like represented death. He was like the Grim Reaper, you know, with the scythe. But it wasn't that. It was this dwarf. He would appear and just look at me. Doesn't sound scary, but it was the scariest shit ever. And
I'd be fucking scared.
When he appeared, it meant that I was still in the near-death experience because I basically took a load of acid and ketamine and my heart stopped and I had this NDE full-on kind of near-death experiencing. It meant that I was still there. But this time I became lucid and he appeared and I turned to him and I know I'm supposed to hug them and embrace them and show them love and all this stuff I teach now, but I didn't know that then. I went like, I think I get it. I fucking get it. And what I meant by I get it was like, I get that you're not real. I get that you're a symbolic representation of what happened to me. I get that you're going to keep on appearing until I finally kind of confront you or, you know, face and embrace you. So I just went, I fucking get it. I get it. Those were the words I used. And then his face changed. He went like, he looked surprised. And I was like, whoa, that's never happened before. And then like a magician, he went, ta-da. And when he went, ta-da, behind him, like these curtains opened, like theater curtains. Yeah. And behind him was a 17-year-old's vision of paradise, which is a bit embarrassing, but it was a big skate ramp, like a vert skate ramp. And on the top of each side of the skate ramp were girls in bikinis smoking spliffs, which like at 17-year-old was my vision of paradise. And even in the dream, I knew something had shifted. I was like, whoa, the whole nightmare's turned into like this amazing, cool scene of skateboarding and girls and weed and all these things I love. So I knew even before I woke up, something had changed. And then I woke up for real. And I just knew it. I was like, that's it. I'm never having those nightmares again. And I didn't. They just ended. So now it's very easy to kind of retrospectively diagnose myself after all the work I'd be doing with veterans and people working with PTSD? Absolutely. I would retrospectively diagnose myself as those being PTSD nightmares. They made all the hallmarks of it. Cured in one lucid dream, or, a few lucid dreams led to it, but one kind of really healing lucid dream. So yeah, and that was the point. I was like, whoa, this shit is way bigger than sex and skateboarding, way bigger. So now I'm suddenly like, whoa, lucid dreaming is serious. This is really powerful. And also, because I've had this near-death experience, and my former wife researched this for her master's, there's a lot of research into this, that when people have a near-death experience, they often become more open to spirituality because they've kind of seen the other side. So these Buddhist books that I'd started to dip into but weren't taken too seriously, suddenly that became really interesting. I got really into Buddhism. And I stopped doing all the drugs eventually, a year or so later, stopped doing all the drugs. And then by the time I was 19, like a couple of years later, I'd taken refuge at a Buddhist center, which way you formally become a Buddhist and they give you a new name and all this kind of stuff. And then a few years after that, I was living in a Buddhist center. I lived there for 7.5 years, and started learning the lucid dreaming practices that are already in Tibetan Buddhism. Now, again, I kind of was aware of that because some of the lucid dreaming books referenced it, but I didn't know kind of what it was. But then I realized these two things I was getting into, Tibetan Buddhism and lucid dreaming, it's like, what the fuck? They've already got synergy. There's a thing called dream yoga, or the Tibetan term is milam naljo. Milam meaning dream, and naljo. Naljo is translated as yoga. Actually, it means like natural state, which is probably a better translation of yoga anyway, maybe. And this is like the spiritual practice of lucid dreaming, where you use lucid dreaming to prepare for death, to do a spiritual practice, to explore the nature of reality. So very early, I was able to get onto this path of learning dream yoga for some really brilliant teachers, really great masters who I owe everything. Everything good that has happened to me since my early 20s has been due to those teachers.
That's such a cool story, man. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to get into, so you were going down the path of Buddhism. You were also studying a bit of the Jungian psychology, Gestalt, and they say that every dream that you have is you, right? So everything is like your own projection of your own subconscious mind. But that there are other traditions like shamanism where they say that you actually go to other realms and you're like traveling into other realms and you're going into this realm and then going to another reality. So was it for you, like when you were learning about these new traditions, old traditions, I mean, new for people in the Western, we're learning about them right now. Was there like a cognitive dissonance when you were trying to figure out what is this lucid dreaming? Is it me? Am I going to another reality? And what is your perspective on it right now? Has it changed in the past?
Yeah, good question. This is actually, again, due to one of my teachers. So my two main teachers when I got into Buddhism were this guy, Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, who's like a full-on Tibetan Lama who came over from Tibet as a refugee and, classically trained Tibetan Lama. And then there's a guy called Rob Nan, who is a Jungian psychologist who is also a Buddhist teacher. So he wrote this brilliant book called Living, Dreaming, Dying, which anyone who's tried to read the Tibetan Book of the Dead and just found it was like way over your head.
I have it in Spanish and I was like, whoa.
Oh, dude, I mean, that is heavy. Then I really advise reading Rob Nairn's book, Living, Dreaming, Dying, because he gives a Jungian psychological breakdown of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and suddenly it becomes way more accessible and understandable. So he became one of my teachers. So he came from both traditions, this Jungian tradition and awareness of Gestalt, saying everything is you in the dream, everything is symbolic representation of yourself, and the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which kind of says the same. But in Vajrayana Buddhism, there's always relative and absolute. So at a relative level, the Buddhist view is the same, that everything in your dream is you. What else would it be? It's all mind, right? But at an ultimate level, the actual view of what a dream is, and in fact, what reality is so profoundly different from the Western view of reality that to kind of conflate the two as even similar is a crazy statement, and yet they seem very similar. Because in the Tibetan Buddhist, well, in a lot of Buddhist views, but especially the Vajrayana view, what we believe to be external, objective material reality is in fact more like a dreamlike illusion that we are co-creating into existence through this like huge collective dreamlike projection, almost like a huge collective psychosis. Really, we really don't see what really is.
In Hinduism, they call that, right, the Maya. Do they have
exactly,
a name for
yeah.
it? In the...
Yeah. And of course, Buddha was a Hindu in the same way Jesus was a Jew. Yeah. You know, Buddha grew up with a Hindu, and then a bit like Jesus was a complete revolutionary and kind of really revolutionized a lot of those views. But yes, that same thing applies. So in Tibetan, when you look at the words for dreams, when they talk about the dreams you have at night, they refer to that as the secondary dream. And you're like, why are they calling it secondary dream? Because the primary dream is this. Wow. Now, it's not literally that we're asleep on like the planet Mars and one day we'll wake up and go, oh my God, it was all, yeah. It's not the Matrix or Dallas for any older listeners who might, get that reference to Dallas where it was all a dream in the last episode or something like that. But it's that this is more like a dream. This is dream-like in that we are creating the world with our mind. With our mind, we make the world. So in that way, the dream state itself, yes, is a projection of mind, but so is the waking state a projection of mind. And the projection of mind that we're experiencing as humans is only one of the 6 realms of existence. So it gets really far out really quickly. So is it possible to visit other realms of existence through the lucid dream state? Yep. Is it even more possible to visit those other realms of existence through the outer body state? Yes. And dream yoga, I glossed over this, but dream yoga, that Milamter thing that we mentioned, isn't just lucid dreaming. It's lucid dreaming, conscious sleeping, and what in the West we refer to as astral projection. So those are the 3 main facets of dream yoga. So a lucid dream is seen as you're in your mind. It is the mind turned inwardly, experiencing the totality of its own projection. So it's like, is a psychological experience. Yeah. But you can have an outer body experience where you are not in your mind. You are experiencing the greater mind, the universal consciousness, a bit like the Western view of astral projection. But also there are ways you can go into the lucid dream and do a certain practice within the lucid dream to boost out of it and then experience these other realms of existence. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question. But so yes, there are these different things to juggle. So what I say in my books is I have this kind of thing I call the 99%. Why do I say 99%? I think it's probably quite accurate, right? So 99% of everything in the dream is you. But there is a crucial 1% where you may be dealing with elements of the collective unconscious, universal archetypes, perhaps even other realms of existence. And I think actually people have said, oh, 1%, that's crazy. It must be way more than that. And the shamanic practitioners saying that's way more than that. Actually, if you do the maths on that, someone once did this for me, I can't remember it, but let's say you have 5 dream periods a night and you're dreaming every single night, which you are. There's no way to stop the human brain from dreaming. That's like hundreds of dreams a month. So all I'm saying is that in 1 of every 100 of those, there might be an experience of something bigger. But that's actually quite a lot. That means like each year, you'll be having like dozens of the experiences of something that is absolutely not your personal mind. So you're really tapping into the transpersonal. So 99% sounds very skeptical, but in fact, I think it's kind of quite audacious to say that, yeah, 1% of things we're dealing with in our dream world is not us. Actually, I think that's quite a big statement and quite open-minded, not closed-minded.
Yeah, just a bit of a quick fun fact for people. I can even just imagine the conversations that you and your former wife have. Jade, she's a astral projection teacher.
You should get her on this podcast, dude. Yeah.
I would love to. And I can just imagine the conversations that you guys have just talking about these experiences. And going off that 1%, has there ever been like a very significant experience in your lucid dreaming where you know that wasn't coming from your own mind and you're just a bit mind blown of what just happened? Yeah,
the one that I'll tell is a nice kind of teaching point too. This is the first time I experienced what I call the 1%. Sorry, and in reference to what you were saying, yes, absolutely. Me and Jade still, in fact, she's next door. She still stays over all the time. Yeah, we've had amazing things where we're both doing practices and I've got my alarm clock set. She's got hers doing her astral projection stuff. And it's really cool. If you can find a partner, or even now she's just a friend, but a partner or a trusted friend who's on this path with you, it makes it so much fun.
Have you heard of Gary Zukav?
Gary Zukav? I don't think
He's
so.
the author of The Seed of the Soul, and he just wrote a new book called Universal Human. And he talks a lot about spiritual partnerships. So I think that's kind of what you're referring to. It's that spiritual partnership that we have with a lot of people in this experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those soul connections. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so it's your question about the 1%. The first time I experienced it, I just started teaching actually. So I got asked to teach when I was 25. I got this thing, authorization to teach, which is like this kind of official Buddhist seal of approval. It means you can teach in Buddhist temples and stuff like that. And at the time, I don't think I really got what it meant. I got what it meant, but I don't think I could open up to what it truly meant. It's only later now that I'm like, fuck, that was insane. Like authorization to teach that young, because I had something to offer, but I really didn't. I was, there were so many mistakes I was making, but I think they probably saw a future potential rather than the present potential.
The chosen one.
Well, I'm still waiting on that. Maybe eventually in this life. So, I got really paranoid and neurotic when they first asked me to teach. I don't know how I came up with these fantasies, but I was sure that one day, like Rob Nairn or Lama Yeshe would ask to see my dream diary. And like, if I wasn't having enough lucid dreams, or I was like getting up to like sexual stuff in my lucid dreams still, they'd like sack me. I mean, I had no idea how this thing worked. It was so naive and so egotistical and just such a ridiculous thing. But this is how I was feeling. So I would have these lucid dreams where I tried to have like full control, because I thought like that's what you did if you were a really good lucid dreaming teacher. You had to have full control, which is complete bullshit, by the way. It's not about controlling the dream. It's about making friends with your dreams, making friends with yourself. But I would do this stuff that I'd never, it was kind of a waste of a lucid dream to do it now, I think. But back then, this is what I used to do. I would get lucid and then like walk into the dream and go, stop, and just freeze the dream. And everything would freeze matrix style. Then I'd walk around and like move stuff, like move people's glasses to weird angles and move cups out of people's hands and stuff like that. And then I'd go continue, and the dream would continue, just head trip stuff, ego trip stuff. And one day I was doing that, and I'd done this thing where I'd paused the dream and I was changing the colors in the sky, trying to make one half of the dream stay in color and one half go to black and white. Just crazy.
There's so much creativity too.
I guess, yeah, you're right. I'm being judgmental of my past self. But anyway, it was just messing about. But it was an ego trip. That was the thing I was trying to control for ego. And the dream's frozen at this point, right? So no one's moving. And I'm in full control, I think, of the dream. And then this woman walks in. First of all, I'm like, how is she moving when everything else is frozen? And then what hits me is her appearance. She's this Tibetan woman with really long hair, like way past her bum. And I think, whoa, her hair's really long. And she walks up to me and she has this energy. I was like, whoa, she's got this strong energy. I could just feel this presence. And she walked up to me and went, don't control the dream. We don't like it.
Whoa.
And I remember being like, who the hell is we? But again, in my arrogance, I went like, what do you mean? It's my lucid dream. I do what I want. And then she touched me. She went, no, don't control the dream. We don't like it. Boom. And then I woke up. I didn't choose to. She woke me up.
Wow.
I don't know, dude. I mean, that's like, what is that, 25? That's like 12 years ago. And still, I don't have an explanation for that. And even when I tell it, I'm like, I swear, man, that was not my mind. I really think that was like a kind of an archetype, a collective archetype, probably the wise old woman, which is a very powerful archetype, the crone, the wise woman. You see it in tarot, you see it in all the traditions. Yeah. Why does she appear as a Tibetan old woman? Because the archetypes, as in death, as in dream, as in active imagination, will appear in the way best suited to communicate to you. So if I was a Christian, she might have appeared looking like Mother Mary or something like that. But because I was into Buddhism, she appeared looking this like Tibetan wise woman. And I'm pretty sure that was my first experience of the 1%. It didn't feel like me. It felt like something else that was sent into the dream to try and stop this young guy making these mistakes. So it felt like a compassionate mission too. Yeah.
That's fascinating. And just to go off that, like you were talking about in the Mind Valley course, which I really recommend people to get
cool.
into. It was amazing. And I'm a huge fan of Mind Valley. And when I saw that they were bringing you on, I'm like, that's crazy. But you talk about the inner dreamer, almost as if the inner dreamer was like a separate entity or like a separate part of ourselves. Like it's us and then the dreamer. And the dreamer controls the script. It's the director. It's even the actor in the whole play. Like, can we get into a little bit about what is that dreamer? How do you define that? And how do we change our relationship with our own dreamers?
Yeah. So you kind of defined it really well there. So I define the dreamer as the part of the unconscious mind that creates, plays out, and directs the dream. Because there's consciousness to dreams. Dreams aren't random. Some dreams seem random, and some dreams are quite random if we don't, sometimes they're just downloads of memory and stuff like that. But we've all had a dream where there's been a perfect plot. Even like just before the alarm clock's gone off, we found out who the murderer was. And you think, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, what part of me is doing that? So we know it's an intelligence. Carl Jung referred to something called the conscious unconscious, which I guess is maybe a bit what I'm getting with the dreamer. And perhaps even this idea of the self with a big S, or the higher self, is also an aspect of the dream, or the dream is feeding off that. But it's the intelligence that creates and plays out our dreams. And it can be communicated with. When we get lucid and we call out something like, what career path should I take? Which you can do in a lucid dream. You can ask for advice from yourself. What is it that gives you the answer? Now it's you. I don't believe it's anything else in the dream. I believe it's you. It's your higher wisdom. But that which is kind of facilitating giving you the answer back, that's the dreamer. Or when you call out like, inner child, come to me in a lucid dream, and then a couple of seconds later, this little child appears, this symbolic representation of all of your connections and memories of childhood appears. The dreamer is the one that's like, yo, send in the inner child. Or like, when you get, here's one. When you get lucid and you want more clarity, you can call out things like boost clarity now, or more lucidity now. When you do it in a lucid dream, everything goes, poof, it goes really bright. It's a really cool thing to do, actually. And I think it's the dreamer.
You're commanding a certain like affirmation to your dreamer.
Yes. Yeah. And it's the dreamer that's turning up the light. It's the dreamer that's sending in the inner child. It's the dreamer that's also chucking you out of the dream if you try and do something dangerous. People are often worried about, could we be re-traumatized through lucid dreaming? Because a lot of the work that I do with the veterans and people with kind of really high levels of PTSD, and they're worried, could this re-traumatize? Very, very unlikely. There seems to be, again, to quote Carl Jung, he spoke about a safety mechanism within the psychic apparatus that strives for balance in the psyche, a safety apparatus within the
it's like a safety.
Safety mechanism within the psychic apparatus that strives for balance within the psyche. There we go.
That's going to be a quote after in this podcast.
Oh yeah, and it is. I think that is a direct quote from Jung. I can't take that one myself. Yeah. It's kind of like, when you put your hand into a fire, the hand just moves back automatically. Like, you could train yourself to kind of keep the hand in the fire, but most of the time the hand pulls back. If you try and do something dangerous in a lucid dream, or something that might re-traumatize you, you just wake up, or the dream blocks you. And I think, again, it's the dreamer that is doing that block. It's the dream. It's that intelligence within the dream. And the blocking thing is interesting. Like my friend Maxwell Hunter, might be an interesting person for the podcast too. Actually, he does brilliant stuff around lucid dreaming and mental health. And he has, when he was first trying to use his lucid dreams to meet his internal voices, so some voices which might be described as schizophrenic voices. That's not the terminology he uses. I think when he first tried to do it, a sign appeared in the lucid dream saying access denied, access denied, access denied. Because at that point, he wasn't ready to meet that side of him. Now, a year or so later, he tried the same lucid dream plan, and he did meet the internal representation of one of these voices within his head, and had an amazing healing experience. And he's done a YouTube video on that. But at that time, maybe he wasn't ready. So the dream was like access denied. I've had it before when I tried to visit like Buddhist heaven, and I called out Dewa Chen. It's like it wasn't actually Nirvana, a thing called Dewa Chen, which is like a pure realm. Yeah. So like a heavenly realm of existence. And I called out, going, Dewa Chen, and nothing was happening. I called it like a third time. And then this woman with a clipboard walks into the dream. I don't think she was the 1%. It did feel like me. It felt more like the dreamer that's come in. She walks in with a clipboard, and she looks down and goes, Dewa Chen, nah, you're not ready for that. And I wake up. And I was like, whoa, what part of my mind was that? And also, what was on the clipboard? Like a list of what 20-year-old Charlie was allowed to do and wasn't allowed to do. So there are these kind of safety mechanisms within the lucid dream, which again, I believe are kind of controlled by the higher self or the dreamer.
Awesome. And going into like some actual techniques about like, just by people hearing this, I think they're going to already wake up to the possibility of lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
As you say, like just when it's like the 5-minute mile, right? When Bruce Banner crossed the 5-minute mile.
Everyone thought it was impossible.
Everyone now, like when I was doing the course, I had 1 or 2 lucid dreams that I identified as lucid dreams. But other than that, I mean, there's so many techniques. I didn't know that it was such a like specific practice to hack the lucid dream state. If you want to get into, I think maybe the 3Ds.
Sure.
3Ds, those are
so
really
again, there are dozens of techniques and courses and books and stuff like that, but some kind of takeaways we can do today. The first D is dream recall. So setting the mind to remember your dreams, because basically, unless you remember your dreams, one argument is you could be having lucid dreams every night, but you won't remember them. I'm like, oh, that's a little bit, I'm not sure I believe that, because lucid dreams, once the prefrontal cortex is activated, when you become lucid, your memory is as good as it is in the waking state. So like lucid dream memories, as far as the brain is concerned, in fact, lucid dream experiences, as far as the brain is concerned, are waking experiences. And it's not to do with, it's not any kind of positive affirmation or a psychological thing. It's a neurological thing. Because for the brain, consciousness is not dependent on having your eyes open. I can close my eyes. I'm still conscious. Consciousness is dependent on activation of certain brain regions, as far as the brain is concerned anyway. So once the brain is activated in the lucid dream, whatever you do, the brain doesn't think you're dreaming it. The brain thinks you're doing it in real life, which is why if you face a fear in a lucid dream, if you integrate a trauma, if you, have this powerful integrative experience or healing experience in a lucid dream, as far as the brain is concerned, you did that. You really went back to Iraq, but this time the bomb didn't go off. Or you were really back in that car crash, but this time, the car flew over the thing. Whether you want to change the dream or allow the dream, if you're having a recurring trauma dream, whatever it is, for example, the brain thinks you actually did that. So it's a really powerful way. Why am I talking about that? Oh, because of the dream recall thing, right? Yeah. So it's probably a case of if you're not remembering your dreams, you're going to find lucid dreaming really difficult. Because having a lucid dream is based on knowing the dream so well that you know the dream when you're in it. So get to know your dreams. How? By setting your intention to remember them and then writing them down. So the first one is that intention, dream recall. So fall asleep, telling yourself, tonight I remember my dreams. I have excellent dream recall. Really set that strong intention. And remember, everybody dreams. Anyone listening thinking they don't dream, that's simply not true. The only way to stop the human brain from dreaming is a heavy head injury or a stroke. Apart from that, everybody is dreaming every single night because it's linked to our evolutionary survival. So you've got to be dreaming every night. In fact, the brain prioritizes dreaming over other forms of sleep. If you miss a whole night's sleep, for example. So you're definitely dreaming. So set the intention to remember your dreams. Second D, dream diary. Write down your dreams. Why write them? Well, you don't have to write them. You could draw them. You could dance them. You could sing them. But do something to recall the memory of the dream. And for most people, the easiest way to do that is to write it down or type it in their phone or whatever it is. So recall the memory of the dream, because by doing that, every dream you remember, you're taking an unconscious process and you're making it conscious. Unconscious, conscious. Sounds a bit like a lucid dream, making the unconscious conscious. So every time you write down a dream, you're not only training the mind to know what am I dreaming about, but you're also creating that link between consciousness and unconsciousness, right? So by keeping the dream diary and writing down your dreams, you'll start to spot patterns. You'll be like, after a week or so, oh, dude, I always dream about being back on that beach we used to go to as a kid. Or I always dream of my dead grandmother. Or I always dream of, being naked in public, whatever it is. You'll start to see these patterns emerging. And these patterns can be used to spot what are called dream signs, which is our third D. So dream signs are any aspect of the dream that can indicate that you're dreaming, like those I mentioned, like being back in a place you no longer live, or being naked in public, or seeing a dead relative or something. Once you start to spot those dream signs, you create a mind that is always on the lookout. You're like, oh, I'm on the lookout in my dreams now. Critical reflective habit of mind, it's called. And some of those might recur. You might be like, oh, dude, like every couple of days I dream that I'm back at my family home or something like that where I no longer live. So then before bed, you can say, well, look, if between now and breakfast I'm in my family home, I've got to be dreaming. Or, if I'm having dinner with Donald Trump, unless you know Donald Trump, sorry, then you've got to be dreaming. You can start to use the dream diary to see, what am I dreaming about? Once you know what you're dreaming about, you can start to see the patterns. Once you start to spot the patterns, you start to create these lucidity triggers. And one night you'll be in your dream, dreaming away, completely thinking you're awake. Because, of course, in our dreams, we think we are awake. They fool us every single night.
You can burn like calories in your sleep, right? When you're
that's when you become lucid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once you become lucid. Oh, sorry. With the dreaming itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dreaming itself burns calories. Actually, use so much blood flow to create this kind of illusion. You actually burn calories. I thought you were referring to, there's been a lucid dream study where these women like ate chocolate cake in a lucid dream. And it was so realistic eating chocolate cake in a lucid dream. It actually led to weight loss. Now, of course, they weren't losing the calories in the lucid dream.
Wait, weight gain or weight loss?
Weight loss. Yeah, so they're losing weight.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, but you might think you would gain calories by eating in a lucid dream. No, because there's no real calories.
Yeah,
but
that would have been crazy.
What it did do is the women woke up feeling satiated. They were no longer hungry when they woke up, so they were less likely to have sugary snacks, and that led indirectly to weight loss.
That's amazing.
So that's a cool fact anyway. So yeah, first D, dream recall. Second D, dream diaries. Third D, dream signs, spotting those patterns and setting triggers. Because eventually you'll be in the dream, and then, your dead grandmother will appear, whatever it is. And you think, wait, my dead grandmother, she's one of my dream signs. Boom, I'm lucid. And then you can get lucid.
And there's certain things that we could do in the waking state to kind of see if we're dreaming, or basically what are we doing right now with our hands for people watching on.
So this is a reality check. In fact, I think I've done 2 already. I think
I saw you do
when I hit the glass or something. I did something unexpected. I did one and something else. So anytime something unexpected happens in the waking state or dreamlike, but I think even just unexpected is enough, then you stop and you ask yourself, could I be dreaming? So in that moment, you notice there was a little pause. I kind of paused. Yeah. In that pause, I was saying internally, am I dreaming? Now, I'm not mad. I know I'm doing a podcast with you. I know I'm not really dreaming, right? But I'm just playing along. I'm suspending disbelief. I'm making a habit that whenever something happens that I wasn't expecting to happen, I ask myself, could I be dreaming? And then I check. How do I check? I look at my hand, and I flip it over and I flip it back in. Or I look at my hand and I pull my finger. Because if I did that in a dream, then the finger would go whoop and the hand would change when I flip it over, because hands do weird things because the brain isn't very good with detailed patterns in the lucid dream. So yeah, you get into these habits of doing reality checks during the day. It's like the secret handshake of the lucid dreamer. If you ever see someone on a bus or on the train, someone walks in a weird hat or something and you see them go, then you know, like, dude, that guy's a lucid dreamer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And another really interesting aspect that I wanted to get into is all around shadow integration that you talk a lot about. And we usually hear that the shadow is this dark aspect of ourselves that, we kind of suppress. But the first time I've ever heard you talk about it, and this is the first time I've ever heard anyone talk about it, is the golden shadow. And that's kind of like our inner light that we also hide from the world.
Yes.
How did that topic and concept come about for you, and how have you seen it in the last couple of years?
Okay, so this is cool. I really want to be the promoter of the golden shadow, not just the dark shadow, because Carl Jung was the pioneer of the concept of the shadow in Western psychology. I mean, you have the concept of the shadow in all traditions, in shamanic traditions, in spiritual traditions, as in this hidden part of ourself. It's called dark, not because it's bad, but dark because it's yet to be illuminated. It's that which we hide from others and hide from ourselves. Anything we repress, deny, disown. So Jung came up with this idea of the shadow in Western psychology anyway. And he described, he said in his early teachings, the shadow is 90% pure gold. So he didn't use the term golden shadow, but he said the shadow is 90% pure gold. That is probably the most important quote from Carl Jung I think we have. And yet it's the one that least people know about. And it's the one that least people take to heart. Jung said 90% of your shadow is pure freaking gold. Wow. And yet in the West, because we're so used to pathologizing our own psyche, just in the same way as we pathologize sleep, we just cling on to this thing like the shadow is bad. It's like he never said the shadow was bad. He said the unintegrated shadow was bad. Like the shadow, if you fully suppressed it, if you don't know what's in it, if you're kind of hiding aspects of yourself, rather, yeah, that's bad. It's not good for our mental health, and it's not good for the mental health of others. But actually what he said was the opposite. So knowing our shadow, integrating our shadow, being brave enough to look at our shadow. What do we hide from others? Yeah, our trauma, our fear, our neurosis, all this stuff. But we also hide our hidden talents. We might hide our spiritual side because we fear people thinking we're too woo-woo. We might hide our sexuality because we might not be comfortable with our sexuality, or in many cases, we're totally comfortable with it, but others aren't. All it takes is one comment from a mother to a young girl when she's looking pretty as a child. Oh, you don't want to be too pretty. And suddenly this child receives the message, my beauty is wrong. So I'm going to put my beauty into the shadow. I'm going to suppress my sexuality or elements of my sensuality and beauty. Perhaps a young boy heard his father say, no one likes a clever clogs. You don't be a smart ass. And then the kid received the message, God, my intelligence is wrong. My intelligence will make my dad love me less. And to a kid, it's that black and white. So that little boy might push his intelligence into the shadow. He might hide it. He might put it where the light doesn't shine. So then when you start to do shadow work, whether it's through the lucid dream or the waking state, and you can do both, you start to unlock those. You start to kind of integrate the power that is blocked by our traumas and our fears. And you start to also unlock, but this time really kind of move into a form of flourishing of our talents that we've suppressed and our beauty that we suppressed and our spiritual side that we suppressed. So shadow work is such good news. It's like shadow work is the safest and greatest gift you can give yourself in the world. And yet we're scared about it because we're told that it's wrong. We're told that it's bad. And I guess no one kind of probably say like, oh, do you want to start looking at your shame and your fears and all your dirty secrets? Like most people are like, no. Like, what about your hidden talents that you're really embarrassed about? It's like people are like, no. But if you tell them the amazing benefits you get from doing that stuff, then suddenly they're, oh, wow, great. Yeah. So I think we need to really focus on the benefits of shadow work, which the first one is increased energy. We waste a lot of energy pretending to be someone we're not. We waste a lot of energy hiding who we really are. We waste a lot of energy suppressing our talents and our joy and our inner child. Think of the energy we would gain back in a moment if we could be fully authentic. And this is why when we hang out with people we can be authentic around, we feel energized because those few people in our life that you can really be yourself with just take the mask off. We feel good about around those people because we don't have to keep up this facade of being without a shadow. We can be with them really in our true authentic self. So it's, get into shadow work, get into lucid dreaming, but also get into shadow work. Probably shadow work even before lucid dreaming, because shadow work prepares the ground for the lucid dreaming practices.
That's so.
And no one ever does that because lucid dreaming's sexy and shadow work's scary.
And that's so powerful what you said. And there was a quote I really liked that you said was, "Meeting my inner light can be just as mind-blowing and scary as my inner darkness." Yeah. And when you were talking about the golden shadow, I kind of saw myself reflected in that. Whereas, in the early parts of my childhood, I asked a lot of questions. I was very curious. And I think due to schooling, maybe other aspects, that part of myself was suppressed. And now, I think I've integrated that and I've accepted that light is one of my biggest strengths, which is curiosity. That's why we're doing this podcast. Exactly.
Yeah. You literally sit in front of people and ask them questions. This is your golden shadow will be freaking loving this. That thing I've always used to do as a kid. And then it got kind of drilled out of me. Now I'm doing it. This is my path. So yeah, brilliant work.
And I'm so happy you said that because a lot of people can take away and start thinking about where is my inner light being hidden? Where am I not showing up with that energy in my daily life? And you said there was a moment where, people are scared to look at their own fears, shadows. And you say in the lucid dream, you can actually meet the personifications of selves. Wait, let me say that again. You can meet personifications of psychological concepts in your dreams. You can meet your fear. You can meet your sexuality, your sexual shame.
Yeah.
How does that look like? And when you're going into your dream and going to meet your inner light or meet your fears, in your experience and in other people's that you've worked with, how does that look like physically like in our dreams?
Totally different. In the same way as if we had a room of like 20 different people, and he gave them a piece of paper and some pens, and he said, draw your fear, draw a symbolic representation of your fear. You'll get 20 different pictures. But whatever they draw on that paper is probably something like what would appear in their dreams. So for some people, when they call out for their shadow, it's like a full-on like demon thing. It looks like a classic like monster. For other people, like my former wife, when she first met her shadow, it was like Optimus Prime. And it took us a while. I was Optimus Prime, how's that your shadow? And they were like, he's a transformer. The shadow is that which transforms. So I've heard it with this huge transformer. And she ran and was like hugging his massive metal leg. For me, I mean, my shadow changes all the time. It depends. What am I currently not looking at? What am I currently suppressing? Sometimes it's like a kind of a sexualized demon. If I've been working with like suppressed sexuality or more to the point, not working suppressed sexuality. Other times it's been like a kind of a bouncer from a nightclub. Like when I was doing loads of martial arts training, my shadow always appeared as this like kind of like man who would do violence. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Because there's an element of suppressing the violence maybe, or exploring through the martial arts and stuff. So the shadow can appear in 1,000 different ways. The inner child, for most people, when they call out for the inner child, it seems to be usually, actually, this one's pretty universal. Nothing's universal. This one's the same a lot of the time for a lot of people. It's often like them at around the age of like 5 or 6. It's like a little kid, usually of the same sex, who sometimes looks like them. When I did, it was me from a like photo by a pool when I was a kid. It was like an actual direct replica of me. But other people, when they met the inner child, it's been multiple children. It's been like a group of children playing on swings. So it hasn't been a singular. When you call out to meet your fear, this one woman called out to meet her fear. And it was this cloud of red smoke, just like, boom, like kind of like almost like a whirl, kind of like a mini tornado of red smoke. But when another dude, a friend of mine, called out to meet his fear, this woman appeared out of, she like rose up out of this water, and she went, your greatest fear is being loved. Whoa. And he was like, whoa, that's deep. So he thought he was going to meet some like monster. What's my greatest fear? In fact, his greatest fear was being told, fear of being loved. So you can get these amazing experiences in lucid dreams. You know, the therapist, James Scurry, who's been working with me, he's the kind of in-house psychotherapist when I do the work with veterans, because you have to have a qualified therapist there in case anyone has a wobble or needs some help. And he said, you know, you can do more in one lucid dream than hundreds of hours of therapy. And I was like, dude, you're a therapist saying that. He's like, I know, exactly. Wow. He said, especially around the inner child, because he's in therapy himself, as a lot of therapists have to be and choose to be. But he said there was something around meeting his inner child he just couldn't do in waking state therapy. Like his child didn't feel safe enough. But he said when he tried it in the lucid dream, the inner child came up straight away, because it's kind of safe in there. It's just you. So the inner child knows it's just you in there. Whereas in the therapy room, that aspect of you, that inner child, that which of course is an energy, not a thing. It's not literally a person, but it's this kind of matrix of energy, might be more timid to come out in front of a therapist. So there are lots of things that not only it seems that lucid dreaming is just as good at therapeutically as one-on-one therapy, we're now finding there are lots of things lucid dreaming is better at. I mean, if you're looking for like nightmare integration, lucid dreaming for PTSD nightmares is right at the top. It's like right at the cutting edge. And we just did a study with the Institute of Noetic Sciences with a group of 50 or 60 people, I think actually, all of which had PTSD. So to come on the course, you had to have PTSD. I've never worked with such a big group, all of whom had PTSD. And on that course, we had 74% of them had a lucid dream in the 1 week study. And of those 74% who had the lucid dream, we had dozens of people having a healing lucid dream, people who healed an aspect of their PTSD. And then, of course, at the end of the study, we checked their PTSD scores again, and you can see a direct drop. So you've got evidence that like after the lucid dream, there was this direct drop in their PTSD scores. So yeah, lucid dreaming is a very powerful tool for that.
Yeah, I think right now we're at the cutting edge of what lucid dreaming can become for healing and any healing modalities out there. I think right now we're just maybe have another conversation in a couple of years. This is going to be completely different in the mainstream.
I hope
everywhere.
that in like a couple of years' time, I'm completely contradicting myself. I hope, well, in a couple 10 years' time, I hope I'm completely contradicting myself. I hope I'm going, oh, dude, 10 years ago? No, that was baby steps. We had no idea that actually you could meet the inner child and the shadow and your PTSD at the same time and create this kind of, family constellation therapy within your own mind. We're scratching the surface. It's like, it is at the cutting edge, but also it's young. It's young in the West anyway. Yeah. So, I hope that in 10 years' time, I'm contradicting myself simply because we've gone so much further than I thought. And I hope that what I thought was the kind of the pinnacle of lucid dreaming was just the beginning. And that there's a whole new generation of people who are making me seem like completely closed-minded because they found a way to use lucid dreaming to open up these huge vistas of experience. And there's a whole new group, the whole new generation who've grown up with lucid dreaming as a household term. Yeah. Like whole generation, like my generation, what am I? I'm an elderly millennial. I'm only just a millennial, I think, in the elderly bracket. I'd say maybe 60, 70% of people my age know about lucid dreaming. The one below, what's that? Gen Z, I think. Gen Z. I mean, which you are, right? How old are you?
I'm 23.
Yeah. So you're Gen Z, right?
Gen Z. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys all know about lucid dreaming. It's like, if you don't know lucid dreaming, like, what? You don't know about lucid dreaming? It's like,
you're not cool, bro, if you don't know.
Yeah. It's like, dude, let alone how many of you are practicing it. And if you're into stuff like Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance theory, which posits that the more people who learn to do a certain thing, the more the level of that skill level is imprinted in kind of like the collective unconscious, although he doesn't use that term, he uses this term morphic resonance, then this stuff's going to get easier for you guys too. Yeah. Because you've got more and more people learning it, imprinting it into the morphic field. So I hope there's a time where this is like not even taught in school. I hope it's just done in schools. And that when you go to therapy, it's like, rather than therapists say, how any dreams you'd like to share with me, they're like, oh, so for your next lucid dream, I want you to do this before our therapy session next week. And then once you've met your inner child in your lucid dream, we'll continue the therapy in the waking state. There's so much stuff that can happen and will happen. Yeah.
And the thing with lucid dreaming, and I think you've said this in the past, is like, it's completely free. So like, the industry around lucid dreaming, I mean, yes, there can be lucid dreaming experts, teachers, people that are, training, but there's no like certain pill that you take, or we don't know yet, that can automatically put you into a lucid dream. I wanted to ask you right now, and since you're so immersed into that whole space and field, is there emerging technologies coming in right now that we can use to facilitate the process of lucid dreaming?
Yeah, there's like a new generation of the kind of sleep mask things that came out. You kind of put them over your face and they recognize rapid eye movement, send like a light pulse through your eyelids. So you're in the dream and suddenly this big light flashes in the dream.
I've done this. Yeah.
And eventually you're like, oh shit, that's the mask. And I'm dreaming. So there's a new generation of those, which I'd always thought if they could be hooked up to an EEG, like a tiny little EEG that could actually work out exactly when your brain is in REM, not just kind of estimating it by the amount of eye movements you are, then you would have something really powerful. And there's that at the moment. It's really expensive. It's like $700 or £700, I think.
Have you heard about it? It's called the Pandora Star.
No, that's really cool. My friend makes those actually, Todd. No, that's like a light machine.
Yeah.
This is like it's like a box. It's called something Z. Like it's got Z in the name. Maybe we can find and put it in the notes later. I'll send it to you. This little box, and it's basically a tiny, tiny EEG machine. It's actually kind of looking at your brain waves, and then it sends these lights down. So it's like the new generation of those technologies. That's what they've been using at Swansea Sleep Lab when we did the laboratory study on nightmares. Some of the dreamers were using that. So there's new generations in that, and then there's some scary stuff with like scalp electro stimulation or something it's called. Basically, you zap a certain part of the brain. Yeah. If you move the brain into gamma while you're dreaming, a lot of people get lucid. And I've always said lucid dreaming is safe because you can't force yourself to have a lucid dream. So if ever there's a dream that your dreamer wants to have without you controlling it or changing it or messing it up in any way, you just won't be able to get lucid. It won't open the door, right? There's no way to bust down the door. And then I hear about this electrostimulation. I'm like, oh, that's like busting down the door. So I'm worried that some people might get lucid in the dream. They're kind of not supposed to be lucid in, there might be some dreams where like you're just supposed to be unconscious in that. So I'm a little bit wary about that. And also zapping your brain for an experience. I don't know. But there's interesting stuff with meditation where they're doing that and they bring people into very deep states of meditation very fast.
Yeah.
So why am I more open-minded to that and less open-minded to lucid dreaming? That same technology. Maybe I'm just being old. Maybe I'm worried about being out of a job. If everyone could have zapped their brains, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of a little bit skeptical about or worried about that. But of course, the best technology is just learning to do it. It's like
practice.
It's not crazy difficult to learn to lucid dream. And if you learn the natural way, it's a skill you've got for life. Whereas if you use the technology to do it, you might have a few lucid dreams, but then without the technology, you've got no techniques. So I say the natural way is still the best way. And there's kind of supplements you can take which help, like B vitamins, B6, for example, really good supplement to take, especially if you're veggie or vegan. So if it's good to take anyway, and also it increases the vividness of your dreams, then yeah, take it with your dinner rather than your breakfast. So it's in your bloodstream when you go to sleep. There are things like that you can do, which will help. But again, they're not needed. The only thing needed to have a lucid dream is enthusiasm and determination.
Yeah.
If you have enthusiasm, like, wow, dude, I've listened to this podcast. He said you could do all this amazing stuff. Wow. If you fall asleep, someone tonight listening to this or seeing this, if we're doing this on YouTube, whatever, will fall asleep in a state of wonder and they will have a lucid dream tonight with no techniques. It's like the wonder technique, because just falling asleep, going, wow, imagine if I can heal myself. Imagine if I can do this. Imagine if I can meet my sexual shame and heal myself from whatever negative effects my shame has been having on me. That will get you lucid way quicker than any electrostimulation or techniques or anything like that, because that is the technique enthusiasm. And the other is determination. Just falling asleep going, oh, cool, having a lucid dream might be cool. That's not enough. Like, you've been non-lucid dreaming for a heck of a lot longer than you've been lucid dreaming. So there is a deconditioning process that needs to occur. And that deconditioning process needs determination. So don't try it like once and then say you tried lucid dreaming, it didn't work. You've got to be really determined and stick to the plan, stick to the protocol. But if you do, anyone can have lucid dreams. In fact, you do. Kids naturally lucid dream. So we know that like everyone listening here has had dozens of lucid dreams. They just don't remember it because they're probably all in their childhood. And that's true. That's a Harvard study that tells us that. This is like science fact. So actually, we don't need to learn to lucid dream. We need to remember.
Remember. That's amazing. Charlie, thank you so much. As we're coming up on the hour, I wanted to start wrapping up. I have one final wrap-up question that goes a bit deeper and kind of gives us like a global perspective. But before that, where can people find you? Where can they know more about you? You have a new project coming up soon. If you want to tell people where they can get that, find it, anything that you feel called to.
Sure. So pretty much everything you can find on my website, charliemorley.com. Apparently, if you just put into Google Charlie Lucid, all my stuff comes up. So if you forget my last name, just put Charlie Lucid, everything will come up. All the workshops, the retreats, I run like a free lucid dream drop-in every month, which is really cool. We get like over 100 people from 30 different countries, and we have a big dream circle and sharing and stuff like that. Super cool. Loads of online retreats, online courses. But the main thing is my new book, which comes out on October the 26th. It's called Wake Up to Sleep: 5 Powerful Practices to Transform Your Sleep. And this is based on the stuff I've been doing with veterans. So there is a big chunk on lucid dreaming, a good kind of solid 2 chapters, but there's also 10 other chapters which have nothing to do with lucid dreaming. They're like yoga nidra, deep relaxation, breath work, coherent breathing, slowing the breath down to 5 breaths a minute, looking at sleep awareness, learning how we sleep and depathologizing the whole sleep process. So it's probably my most mainstream book. Like, how many people can buy like a lucid dreaming book for someone they don't know very well? Probably not many people. Lucid dreaming is pretty niche, right? But this book, like anyone, unless you're hitting 8 to 9 hours perfect sleep a night, which like who is actually doing that, then this book has got some really good techniques to help optimize sleep, especially for people with stress or trauma affected sleep patterns. And the last like 18 months has stressed out the freaking world. So most people need some help with their sleep right now. And this book has brought together the most powerful techniques that I've come across in the last 13 years. And if it works with the military veterans with really high levels of stress and PTSD, it's absolutely going to work for civilian populations too. And we found that it does. So yeah, that's called Wake Up to Sleep. It comes out October 26th.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I'm definitely going to get it. So I encourage people, because hacking and optimizing sleep is so important. So important for
there is no biological process that is not negatively affected by insufficient sleep. And there is no biological process that is not optimized by sufficient sleep. Mm-hmm. It's a no-brainer. Like, if you want to be better at life, get good sleep. That whole thing, that old 90s vibe of like, sleep when you're dead. It's like, dude, that's dead. In fact, those people are dead, because they didn't sleep enough. It's like direct links between good sleep health and longevity. So if you want to be good at your work, good at your life, good in your relationships, get enough sleep. And nowadays, enough sleep is 7 to 9 hours a night, like 7 to 9 hours. So, and there's pretty much no exceptions. They did some really interesting studies where they got people who only have 5 or 6 hours sleep, and they're like super successful. Not only are they super successful, but they say things like, I feel totally fine on 5 or 6 hours sleep. So they do these kind of brain tests. And what they find is, although after 5 or 6 hours sleep, they say they feel fine, when they give them the brain test, they do terribly. And what they find is that we have become so habituated to poor sleep that we think it's our normal. So then when you give these people who are living very successful lives of 5 or 6 hours sleep, you give them 1 extra hour of sleep, and their optimization goes through the roof. Suddenly they're more successful at work, at their relationships, their well-being and happiness levels go through the roof, just 1 extra hour. So we can do amazing things by giving ourselves an extra hour in bed. And if you think, I don't have time for an extra hour in bed, you will gain back 3 or 4 hours in productivity if you give yourself that extra hour of bed. Yeah, so it does make sense.
Thank you for saying that. And just to zoom out for a moment, in the Mind Valley course that you did, you talked about a concept called the dream plan, right? So you always should have an intention when you do get lucid, have an intention to wake up in that dream and do the work that you were planning to do. If you were to look outside and look at the humanity as a whole, if you were to recommend one dream plan for humanity to heal something that we need to heal, what would that dream plan look like? And how could we, take this lesson and massively shift our consciousness through this healing?
That is a big question. And as you can see, we did not do one of these podcasts where we pre-prepare the answers. As you were speaking, the thing that came was definitely kindness. Like, everything seems to boil down to that. Kindness. Like, kindness to ourselves and others is the whole spiritual path. Like, kindness. So I think maybe something as simple as becoming lucid in the dream and just like hugging everyone in the lucid dream. Going through the lucid dream and just hugging and showing love to everything, every tree, every person, every inanimate object in the lucid dream. Because if we did that, we would be showing love to ourselves. And if we can be kind and show full self-love to ourselves, the world would change, because the outer world is a reflection of these inner worlds, right? So if we can create an inner world based on love and kindness, and we had enough people doing that, showing love and kindness to themselves, that would radically alter the world. Radically.
That was very powerful.
But yeah, be kind to yourself. That's what I would say.
Mic drop right there, Charlie. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really happy we made this happen. It took us a while to get our schedules together, but we made it happen. And thank you for your kindness and generosity with your time, your wisdom. Even at such a young age, you're already teaching all these concepts, and from 25 already being commissioned to teach is a huge honor, and I really appreciate and admire your work. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, dude. And you are the next generation and doing brilliant stuff, way younger than I started doing my thing, man. So keep doing your thing, keep spreading the word. And thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure and really good questions. Thank you.